Hello, everyone. We're going to get started now. So I'd like to welcome an MIT Sloan alum, Omar Mitchell, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility at the NHL, for today's competitive advantage talk, which will be environmental sustainability in the NHL. Please welcome Omar Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So before we start, I just want to give you a little bit of, I think it'd be useful for you to know a little bit about my background. As was stated, I am a Sloan MBA class of 2012. And just to tell you how I got to the NHL, because these types of roles don't really exist in professional sports. I practiced as an architect. I always wanted to be an architect. I was an architect for 8 years, got my master's in architecture. After 2008 came, market collapse, real estate collapse, architecture collapse. Said, what I want to do, go back to business school and see what the opportunities were. Got into Sloan with a focus in sustainability. And it was from that focus that I got an internship with the National Hockey League. And what was funny about that internship was that it leveraged a lot of the business learnings that we had at Sloan with my architecture background. And so the internship involved going around to the different facilities, about half of all of the different NHL arenas across the league, to learn about what they were doing in sustainability. And so I wrote case studies and best practice guides. And at the end of it, they said, Omar, we think you'd be a good fit to do this full time. How would you build out the business case for sustainability in sports? That's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. Because a lot of people don't realize this movement that's growing in professional sports right now. It's a movement about environmental sustainability, and it's something that's actually very important. So I'm going to take you on a journey of why the NHL is concerned about environmental issues and the business case for it. I think this is my clicker. So why does the NHL care about this? That photo alone sums up exactly why the NHL is concerned about environmental issues. That's the root of our game. That's where people learn to play our sport, typically. And because we learn to play our game outdoors, our sport is directly impacted by climate change and freshwater scarcity. 15 of the last 16 years have been the warmest on record, regardless of what your politics are. That's a fact. We have freshwater scarcity issues that are going to happen in 40 states over the next decade, of which a third of our clubs play in those states. This is a challenge. In addition, we play in a giant refrigerator. If you think about it, where energy consumption is one of our biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. Think of any other professional sports in the US. We play in a giant refrigerator. So it's imperative for us to try and think about how we can mitigate those impacts to ensure that we have the game for the next 100 years. For the folks who saw Commissioner Bettman, he said that we're celebrating our centennial next year. We have a long history of our sport. We want to make sure that our sport continues for the next 100 years. So what is the NHL? Why does the NHL care about this? What is the NHL? $3.6 billion business. We have 12 million followers on social media. This is big stuff. This is a lot of influence. And we're just the smallest of the 4 professional sports leagues in North America. Think about the other guys who have bigger revenues, $5 billion, $7.5 billion, $13 billion. We're just the smallest, but yet we want to show that we're taking this commitment seriously. And that's why we started NHL Green. NHL Green is a mandate to promote sustainable business practices across the league and its member clubs. We have all of these qualitative goals that explain exactly why we care about this stuff. Tracking impacts, reducing, counterbalancing or offsetting these impacts, and then promoting this to our fans, the 400 million fans that watch our sport on TV. 20 million fans that watch our games live in arena every single year. And so what did we do? We started off first with a food recovery initiative, which was the first time any pro sports league had ever done this. We got all of our clubs to commit to taking prepared but unused food and donating it to local food banks. Makes sense, right? You're not wasting the food. The food is going to worthy places where it could be eaten. Over 100 tons of food are donated every single season by our clubs. That is equivalent to 120,000 meals. That's significant. Not only is it getting food back to places where it's needed, but it's diverting waste to landfill, from landfill. In addition, we have a water restoration project. We have counterbalanced over 40 million gallons of water to freshwater streams. So to the slide that I showed you at the beginning where it said, we're concerned about freshwater scarcity, what we're trying to do is show and finance ways that we can replenish those streams that are affected by climate change or any other type of environmental occurrences. We have a tree planting initiative. I'm sure everybody understands, realizes that trees are, you think of environmental, you think of trees, so we plant some trees. But more importantly, one of the things that I like is this program. So if you think about our barriers to entry for our sport, there's two things. Playing hockey on ice, so ice time, so getting involved, playing the sport on ice. Ice time costs is a barrier to entry. And sticks and equipment, that's another barrier to entry, right? No other professional sports has to have all that padding and equipment, major professional sport. So with this initiative, what we're trying to do is try and get that equipment out of the attics and garages, get it back into the local communities by restoring it and getting it back to folks who can't afford that type of equipment. And that's significant because what you're trying to do is show why environmental issues can really affect the outcome of our game and the growth of our game. And that's a recurring theme that I want you guys to remember as you see this presentation evolve. Because at the end of the day, the commissioner will say, Omar, we do this because it's the right thing to do, right? He'll tell you that. But I'm always telling him, no, actually, there's also a business case to be had. And here it is. We also, we have our this is the GARE donation drives. We also had released our sustainability report. Sustainability report was the first one of its kind from any major pro sports league in North America. This is a catalog of all of the good things that our clubs were doing in the environmental space. And what gave the report its teeth was the fact that we reported the carbon footprint of the NHL, another first for major pro sports leagues. 550,000 metric tons of carbon. We did this analysis voluntarily. And we made a public statement about why we care about this. It's on nhl.com/green/report. And I encourage you, if you haven't looked at it, to review it. Because it tells you exactly why we care about the things that we care about. In addition, all of our clubs are involved and engaged, either through operations or processes, or at least having one sustainability representative in their organization. Our players are involved, both current players and alumni. We have folks like Andrew Ferentz, who's a co-captain of the Edmonton Oilers currently, who is a genuine, passionate believer about environmental issues. Now, I told you guys that we have 12 million followers on Facebook. His Twitter feed or his social media feed is one person, it's like 800,000. I don't even need to tell you how many Twitter followers LeBron James has. Not that he's in our sport, but the fact is that athletes can tell the story in a way that is unique and authentic. And that's what we need to try and get. It's more athletes to talk about this stuff because it is important. In addition, our fans care about this work. We've done surveys and polling that show that our fans 13 times more likely to purchase locally grown food, 19 times more likely to pay for eco-friendly products and services. That's significant. If our consumers are interested in this, We should be interested in this as an organization, right? And what are we talking about when we talk about fans? There are 170 million followers of sports in the US alone, right? You talk about trying to get the environmental message out, there's a subset of people. This is like a willing crowd of people who are interested in knowing more about these issues. And what's the thing about sports that is unique is that you can tell and you can talk about environmental messaging in an apolitical way when you use sports. That's the key thing. If you talk about climate change in any other context, you're thinking, you're talking, and you're opening up to getting critiqued because you're taking a political stance one way or the other. And our hope is that we can talk about this messaging in an apolitical way. So this is the one slide that I want you to take away from this presentation. This was the slide that I presented to our executives when I took on the job. This is why we do what we do. There are three facets to greening in pro sports, at least at the NHL, as far as we're concerned. And this is what creates underlying value creation for our organization. The first is venue operations. And I'm going to go into detail on all three of these categories. But the key thing is that venue operations and greening and lowering energy consumption and water consumption will lead to cost savings. If I go to any NHL arena building manager or any club executive or venue executive, and I tell them, guys, you guys should go green because it's the right thing to do, they'll say, thank you, Omar. If I tell them, you're going to save $200,000 in your operating costs on your energy bill next year, are you interested? They'll be like, come talk to me right now, right? That's the way that you talk about these issues. Partnerships and fan engagement. This is about understanding that one of our biggest revenue sources is corporate partners. We have Miller Coors, we have Honda, we have McDonald's, Pepsi. They're doing all of this environmental stuff already. We offer them 72 million fans to get that messaging out that they ordinarily wouldn't have access to. So we can tell their story in a unique way. Or we can try and find new partners to sell them the story and say, come work with us to tell that story. And you'll see, we'll give you an example of a unique partnership that we did that does exactly that. And then the last thing is communications and PR. And that is telling the story and demonstrating why the league is being so, taking a proactive position in this. Because then we can start to build credibility in the marketplace that, you know what, the league actually cares about this stuff. So let's go into, just drill very quickly into each one. Green venue operations, 75% of our carbon footprint is through energy consumption. So it's in our best interest if we want to mitigate our impacts to focus on lowering our energy use, as an example. Here is one amazing, I think, a pretty telling stat. This is a timeline of when all of our arenas were constructed. You will see that the majority of all NHL arenas, the arenas in which our clubs play, were built in the mid to late 90s. That means that they're coming up on their 20-year mark of lifespan, where typically the technologies that were built into those buildings have like maybe a 10 to 15 lifespan. So right now, you're seeing a lot of these technologies are reaching end of life, and they need to be replenished or replaced. So there makes a perfect opportunity to try and instill the best and latest green products and services into those buildings. And we're seeing this as a trend that's happening across pro sports. 5 of the last 6 sporting facilities, professional sporting facilities that are built, are being built to LEED certification, energy efficiency certification, right? This is one of our examples. This is the new Edmonton Rogers Place Arena that's going to be opening up next year. This is LEED silver certification. And should we ever expand, and I don't know exactly if we are, but should we ever expand, The Las Vegas arena is LEED Gold. They built a leadership in energy efficient design, a LEED Gold building in the desert. Quebec has a LEED Silver building, if we ever expanded it to Quebec. So, and this is a trend that's happening across the board. The new Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the football stadium in Atlanta, they're going for LEED Platinum, which is like one of the highest categories for environmental efficiency. That's significant. If a building is using public funding to build any of these arenas, they are going to achieve some sort of energy efficiency certification. This is just how it's being done now. And we're seeing different technologies that are evolving and coming into the marketplace that are affecting not just the game, but just massive adoption in general. And one of them is LED lights. And I'm speaking specifically about the game lights that illuminate the ice rink. So in the past, we've had metal halides. They're 1,000-watt metal halide lights. They use a lot of energy, and they create a lot of heat, right? These lights, 40 to 60% less energy used than those metal halides. So when I go and talk to the venue managers, they're like, tell me more, I want to know more. And certainly with any new technology, product, and service, there has to be an opportunity to vet that technology, because there are all kinds of things that we still have to figure out, right? So as an example, these lights are really great for slow motion replay and capture, which if anybody's watched hockey knows that that's a big component of what we see on the screen is those slow motion plays of the goals that are being scored. And those lights, the LED lights, obscure the flickering that you would see on a regular metal halide system. So that's the new technology that we're vetting right now, and it happens to be green and great and good. And that's why these are things that are important to us. Another one is fuel cell technology. So this literally creates energy on site using natural gas or methane. And so it's highly efficient, and because you're not taking energy from the grid, i.e. from coal-powered plants that are miles away and take all types of distribution losses to get from where the source of its generation to the arena. Now you've got a technology that the energy is being created right on site. So our arenas can use 80 to 90% of their energy that they're using on non-game days can come from these systems. 20 to 30% of their energy consumption on game days come from this system. That's significant. And so far, 3 of our clubs in California have all installed this technology at SAP Center, Honda Center, and Staples Center. Another thing that's really cool that's coming up is new real-time building automation systems. They're called real-time recommissioning systems. So think about in your homes how you have Nest that are, it's all, you're creating technology in your home. It's the same concept, except at in the arena level, where a building manager can have real-time data access to how their building is performing. So that if they see a spike in energy in 30 seconds, they know that their loading dock door hasn't been shifted, hasn't been closed. So they can turn it off. They can be more energy efficient. In addition, we're a little bit different, again, because we have a sheet of ice. And so a building manager can fine-tune exactly what the ice performance is going on with the actual building environment and the building temperature and building humidity. So that was a little bit about the green venue operations. In terms of corporate partnerships, there is an opportunity to engage new corporate partners, as I mentioned. And why do I say that's important? $500 billion US sport industry. And the ecosystem is vast, right? It's about apparel. It's about food. It's about green cleaning products. This is a huge industry in the US. And there are companies that are willing to differentiate themselves by saying that they're going green. And so why shouldn't we be able to partner with them to tell their story in a unique way? And on top of that, We already did an analysis of all of our major corporate partners. 80% of our corporate partners have an external commitment to sustainability. So if our corporate partners are doing it, we should be doing it too. It would behoove us not to do it, right? And from this work, we did, in fact, execute a major corporate partnership with Constellation, which is a vertically integrated energy services provider. That's a fancy term that just means they do a whole lot of stuff in the energy efficiency space. But why this was important was because, as part of the partnership, they counterbalanced the league's entire carbon footprint. Remember I told you there was 550,000 metric tons? They counterbalanced it through the purchase of RECs, renewable energy certificates, and carbon offsets. Those are just financial instruments that allow us to invest in renewable energies and renewable technologies. But that's a hell of a statement, right? Because we can say as a league, we actually care about this stuff enough that we want to invest in that green power. And we're doing it through this corporate partner. And in addition, you recall I told you that 75% of our carbon footprint comes from energy consumption. Now I have the experts behind me who can go to an arena and say, look, here's how you can actually reduce your energy consumption. They're my experts. And so this is why these types of partnerships are so important, because that way we can actually do something meaningful to lower our impacts. And we're trying to figure out other new ways to engage other corporate partners in other spaces like water, like green cleaning products, like building automation. As for communications and PR, it makes, as I told you, we can tell the story in a unique way. And we have been. NHL.com/green is our clearinghouse for that. This will be released at 1:30. We're celebrating our first Green Week, and the press release is going out right now. That's starting from Saturday to next week, Friday. First time that the NHL is ever doing a Green Week. And NHL.com/green will be our clearinghouse for all of that content. So it's kind of cool that we have this platform to tell the story. And that's why it's the next step is to get more of these types of athletes engaged in that discussion so that they can tell the story. Because as much as I want to say something, as you know, who cares about Omar? But they care about their star players. And they want to hear what their star players are saying about environmental issues or corporate social responsibility for that matter, whether it's cancer, whether it's environment, whatever their CSR initiatives that they believe in. And specifically for hockey, our players believe in these types of CSR activities. They actually genuinely do. Another big initiative as a next step is a community rink program initiative. So if you think about it, the front lines of our games are those community rinks, right? So remember, I told you the barriers to entry, sticks in hands, and community rinks. All the pros are doing this, as you've seen, LED lights, building automation technology. If we can take all of the best practices of the pros and bring it down into the community rink level, our hope is that lowered operating costs equate to lower ice time costs, which equates to growing the game. So again, this is bringing the business case of sustainability to the underlying business case of our organization. At the end of the day, when you speak to the commissioner, he'll tell you all of these mandates that we want to do. One of the key things is we want to grow our sport, just like any other professional sports league. And our hope is that we could use a community rink program initiative like this, especially around the centennial, to get and actually achieve significant reductions in our environmental impact and lower the cost of our game. And so that's what we're actively doing right now. And that's why this work is not only the right thing to do, but it's also things that are important to us and to our business. So, thank you very much. I have 6 minutes, so if you guys have any questions at all, lay it on me. Yes?
Do other leagues care as much about the environment, and if they don't, why does the NHL care the most?
So I can tell you that I have, well, first of all, what you're seeing is a movement in professional sports around environmental issues. So there's a group, a nonprofit group called the Green Sports Alliance that is a sort of a clearinghouse for promoting environmental and professional sports. And what you're seeing is that all of the leagues are involved in some capacity around environmental awareness, and it's through the Green Sports Alliance. So you're certainly seeing that there's a movement, and the reason why I'm saying that there's a movement, because in their 5 years of existence, they have now expanded to 300 sports properties, not just in North America, but across the world, in 4 continents, and collegiate, amateur, professional. So you're certainly seeing this as a movement that's growing around the world, right? On top of that, I have my counterparts at every single other sports league, and they all do different things around environmental awareness and issues. Our claim is that we can do this and talk about this in a much more effective way or more passionate way because of that photo. Because this is something that is directly impacting our business. So our hope is that we take a leadership position in this space to show that as an organization, we do care about this. Yes?
That actually leads into exactly what I wanted to ask about. You mentioned earlier that it behooves you to take an apolitical stance, as apolitical as possible. But to the extent that the outdoor pickup game is still a very important part of your heritage, and given how loyal hockey fans are to the game, isn't there a case to be made that it's not enough to have the arenas and the teams and the league itself be carbon neutral, but maybe there is a benefit to the league and the teams, pressing on the political front to bring about more substantive wholesale changes in the energy infrastructure that would, hopefully at some point in the near future help revitalize the outdoor game.
Perhaps that might be a good way of going about it, and there's no doubt that that is one way of thinking about it. What I like to tell all of our executives is this: we're just on the first stage of a much longer journey around these issues, right? We have to get our house in order first. So who are we to go and tell other people or other industries or try and exert influence in other aspects of business until we get our house in order? So that's the focus right now. And then we can think about, in the meantime, we're still talking to the Department of Energy, Natural Resources Canada, and the Environmental Protection Agency to figure out how to do some of our existing initiatives and to try and get that messaging streamlined with what we are actively doing. Perhaps that may be in the future, but we're just in the really beginning stage of a much longer journey. Yes. And then, yes.
A lot of the arenas are multi-use arenas. What incentives are you giving to the PA and the arena owners?
So to answer you directly, there are no incentives. The incentive is literally what I mentioned, which is, let's take it a step back. To be clear, sometimes the arena is owned and operated by the same entity that owns the club. Sometimes the arena is owned and operated by a different entity. So we can talk to the club, and in the situation where they're owned and operated by the same entity, it's very easy for us to try and drive that messaging. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. We don't provide incentives per se. It's really aggregating. We are the resource. We're the aggregator for all of these best practices, so we can show to arena operators or arena owners, look, this makes sense. It's in the numbers. And that's another interesting point, because to that point, I report into our CFO, our Chief Financial Officer. So it's interesting that he's always challenging me to make the financial case for why we're doing what we're doing, because then I could go and speak in their terms to the facility owners, the facility managers, and the club ownership.
You took my question.
Good. Yes.
Greenwashing is extremely popular, and everyone wants to talk about
Yes.
how good they are to the environment. What are some of the tactics that you're taking to try and counteract that perception that, oh, it's just PR?
Excellent question. And so you'll hear this term in sustainability conferences or in Sloan, as an example, authenticity, right? We want to make sure that what we're doing is authentic. We want to make sure that we're just not messaging out that we're trying to be environmental because, it's going to give us good PR. And the way that we solve, or the way that we approached it is, we wanted to do all of these things behind the scenes. We wanted to go and work with our facility managers to drive energy reduction. That's why the partnership with Constellation is so important to us. We wanted to go and drive this, to share these best practices as an example, so that other people can start adopting it. And so you start moving the needle, not just from the first early adopters and the first users, but throughout the entire stage of first adopters, the middle of the pack, and then the late adopters. So that's what we are at the league. We're a resource to engage that type of awareness so that people are doing it. And then we say, all right, we're going to put out our sustainability report and show how cool we are. That's the difference. We wanted to ensure that we had a credible program first before going out into the marketplace. Yes? It's a good question too, because again, going back to the fact that we play in a multi-use arena, so you got maybe sometimes it's basketball, sometimes it's hockey, sometimes it's your Rihanna concerts, right? Sometimes it's the circus. So you have to be able to understand what those measurements are, and that's where the real-time data monitoring comes into play. These new technologies are so sophisticated that now we can tell exactly what the energy use is in real time, so that then we can start to monitor it accurately, because right now it's just an assumption. And it's an assumption that's based on generally accepted principles in carbon footprinting. But it's those technologies that's going to get us to be much more refined. If people don't know this, we have our ice sheet that's down while basketball is playing, while concerts are going on. So there will always be a use of energy during those events that's going to be NHL allocated. Okay, I think I'm out of time, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.